This is it. This is the studio, the messy studio, in the bonus room above the garage on the north side of Fort Mill, South Carolina, near the buckle of the Bible Belt, in the shadow of Charlotte and the foot of Mount Belzoni. And this is the York County Democratic Party YCDP TV podcast and YouTube show. And today is June 1st as I'm recording this, so happy June. Get ready for the brutal summer here in South Carolina. Also, happy Pride Month. Maybe we can do a Pride Month show sometime soon, before the month is over, I hope. This is episode 9, if you're keeping track. And I think we're going to call this Politics School, the Clyburn Fellowship. And joining me on the show are going to be Carla Litrenta and Ryan Stevens. Carla ran for State House in 2022. Ryan ran in a special election for county council. Neither one of them were successful in their runs. And then they went to politics school. And we'll see what they learned about that. My name is Gary Pierce. I am the host for this episode of the show. Matt Villardo will be back, and we'll do some more shows coming up as soon as we can. But now let's get this program going. And here they are. Carla's in the middle. Ryan is on the right. Welcome to the York County Democratic Party YCDP TV podcast. Maybe we need an easier name. Hi, Carla. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Gary.
And Ryan, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me again, Gary.
And what we are here to talk about is the Jim Clyburn Fellowship, something you guys both have been through, something I know only a tiny bit about. I understand it's basically political training. So we're going to get the details on that. And I also know, being a relatively new person here in South Carolina, so my information in history was absorbed when I lived in the Raleigh, North Carolina area, only a little bit about Jim Clyburn himself. He was the guy who endorsed Joe Biden in the 2020 primary that pushed him from relative obscurity. I mean, he had been vice president. Everybody knew who he was, but he was sort of not leading the pack for sure during the primary to boom, he's our candidate. That's the Jim Clyburn I know. You guys probably know someone a little bit more intimately.
Yeah, we got to know some interesting facts about him through doing the fellowship. We got to know, I think, most interesting is how the fellowship came about. And it was thanks to Jamie Harrison, who had this idea for a fellowship to kind of, like you said, train, educate, inspire Dems all over the state to kind of get together and give them some resources and connections to do more with the party, either as candidates themselves or running campaigns. And Jamie called Congressman Clyburn and said he had this idea and can he name it after him? And the congressman tells it in a funny way that he was so honored that he would name it after him. And then, of course, the next question was from Jamie, will you fund it as well? So it was kind of a loaded question, but I think it was an excellent choice to name the fellowship after him.
Was Jim involved at all? Did you meet him? Things like that?
Yeah, we met him for one. We had a session with the representative, and we were able to have a good morning with him, a good couple hours, and asked him questions and heard his vision for his life and kind of where he is in the minorities in the House of Representatives, and also just how the Democrats in the national level are very focused on what they can do to win back the House in this next election in 2024, but also just a lot what he has done for the state. An interesting story that he told was when he was on the Appropriations Committee that he was able to get on. A Republican at the time representative changed parties to become a Democrat, and they were going to let him sit on the Appropriations Committee, which the Appropriations Committee gives funding and all the money to districts and all over the country. And so Representative Clyburn went to the Democratic leadership because they were in the majority at the time and said, I will give up my seat because it just can't work out having a certain amount of representatives from the same party on the Appropriations Committee. but I'll give you this memo and I want everything for my district funded. And so they agreed, and that's how he got a lot of things funded for the state. He also worked with the Biden administration for the rural internet package that was just put through a few months ago. So there was just a lot of overall just kind of figuring out the game of politics, what we don't see on TV, because everyone is so...
Okay, Ryan's internet is stalling out a little bit.
I am sorry, good old Comporium.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We're
I'm here.
probably Comporium all the way around here. All right. So I'm taking a look at the website here. So what it's telling me here is that the class is 4 2-day intensive seminars. Mm-hmm. You met with experienced and accomplished national and state facilitators, and they were teaching you how to campaign and win elections, which is going to be an interesting thing here in York County. And you can become politicians, campaign managers, fundraising directors, consultants in local and county state operations. Basically anything that you need to know to be successful in politics. So that's it. Thanks for coming. I don't suppose we can distill 4 2-day intensive seminars down to a 30 or 40-minute conversation. But what is it about the fellowship that you guys want to tell everybody? Ladies first. Carla, go ahead.
Thanks. I just think it was a great opportunity, and one I didn't really know about. I didn't know existed. John Krelovich let me know about it and told me after I ran for State House in District 66. And I thought, okay, this could be really useful information. It might be somewhat repetitive of some of the things that I've learned, but I really found that it was very useful in both kind of rehashing and taking a look back and, even criticizing some of the things that I did during my campaign in a constructive way, and learning some tools for the future if I decide to go down that route again, either myself as a candidate or helping on another campaign. But for the 4 weekends that we were there, and they spread them out, they were about once a month for the last 4 months. It's a group of 20. I think our class may have had 22, but it's usually a group of 20 people from across the whole entire state, all different counties. And we meet with current state lawmakers. We meet with people in the South Carolina Democratic Party. We met with Jamie Harrison, who's obviously in the National Democratic Party. We met with Congressman Clyburn. He gave us a copy of his newest book, which is called Blessed Experiences, that we read. And there are a lot of really great anecdotes about his kind of amazingly long life in politics and just being an activist in general for his community. And we were able to learn through those different sessions things about how to successfully fundraise for a campaign, how to reach out and get boots on the ground and spread the word about a campaign, what organizations that you might be able to partnership during your campaign. We learned from the lawmakers kind of what's going on at the State House right now, which was really interesting. Heather Bauer came in and talked to us about the whole entire mess on abortion and the 1,000 amendments that the ladies of the State House filed to try to delay the inevitable. So we kind of talked a little bit about strategy and got the inside scoop on what was going on during that particular phase in that particular week at the State House. So it was really interesting.
I thought overall it was really good to hear from individuals who ran campaigns in the logistical sense of it, getting down to the precinct level and trying to get the numbers in order to win campaigns, and just also being realistic in the fact that South Carolina, we have to be realistic in where South Carolina is. It's not going to be a blue state next election cycle or the one after that. It's going to be a long progress, and we need to continue to have voter engagement all the time, all year round. And just the networking opportunities, meeting people up and down the political apparatus of the state party, the national party, and just also opening up those networks to have the ability to fundraise as well. So when you get back into running for office, and getting that money because it's needed, unfortunately, and just different ways you can fundraise and message candidates as well.
So both of you had been involved in campaigns in 2022. In the course of the seminars, did they look at your campaigns and analyze what you specifically did, or were you just taking the information they gave you and comparing it to what you remember you did?
They did Carla's campaign a lot, as it was a state level, so it was easier to dissect some numbers. So she was the guinea pig a lot, much to her dismay.
Yep.
And but with it being a special election, it's always harder to get true numbers off of a campaign. You always want to look towards the last couple election cycles and see what you can do better.
So Carla, they tore your campaign apart a little bit.
A little bit, yeah, and I wasn't. It's hard when you're 4 or 5 months after the election to kind of do that post-mortem, but ultimately I'm glad we did. This was during a session on marketing and, well, not really marketing, but messaging and how to construct an effective message that can reach, the number of people that you need it to reach in the short time that you need it to reach them, and with the limited funds that every campaign has. I mean, whether you're raising tens of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars, it always seems like it's never enough. So everyone has the same problems, no matter what level you're on. How to get a great persuasive message out to the masses, and for as cheap as possible, basically. So we looked through my website, which was still up, and we kind of looked at my messaging and dissected it a little bit. We looked at my opponents and dissected it a little bit. And I got some really good feedback from the class about what their takeaways were. And some of it was what I had heard, post-mortem right after my election. And some of it was new, and all of that is hopefully going to be incorporated in whatever I do next.
Do we know what you're doing next?
Not really.
Can we make news on the podcast?
No, I don't have anything right now, but I hope to, really sit down with my family and my inner circle to figure it out. I enjoyed campaigning a lot more than I thought I would. I started as a candidate because I wanted to be in the state house. I'm an attorney. I really like practicing law. I like interpreting law. I like, I thought I would be very good at making law and sitting down with other people and making relationships and negotiating with them, no matter what party they're on. I'm coming from a very, middle ground approach. I'm not, I mean, obviously I'm a Democratic candidate, but I'm not on the extreme side of anything. And I just really wanted to do the job badly. And I didn't think I was going to love the campaigning part so much. And then when it ended, it kind of felt like I was sitting there missing it. So that was surprising. So I don't know if Ryan thinks the same way, but that was something that I wasn't expecting. So because of that, I have thoughts. I'm working on things, but I don't have any announcements right now.
Okay, Ryan, did you learn things that you would have applied differently in the campaign that you ran?
Yeah, I think I definitely would have focused more on just raising a lot more money. Your first campaign, you just are flying by the seat of your pants. Like it's just nonstop, especially the timing in which my election was. And just the messaging, I think I could have messaged a lot better, because 90% of the people don't know what county council does to their day to day. But, looking back, I did the cookie cutter, knocking doors, calling people, texting and all that's needed, but they're more the mechanics of a campaign that people don't realize all that goes into it. How to properly message, how to properly get your name out there, and do a little of attacking. And I didn't do a lot of that, just and again, it was just the timing of everything. But you want to paint yourself and your opponent in a way that there is a contrasting element to the campaign as well.
This was the first dip into politics for both of you, into political office?
Yes.
Yeah, running for office for me,
Yeah.
definitely. Mm-hmm.
And in a county like your county, it's hard to find candidates who are willing to take on an office where they're going to start as the underdog, as a candidate.
Mm-hmm.
How did they address campaigning from that point of view?
Yeah, they did a little bit, again, like kind of how Ryan touched on. Everyone presented a very realistic view on the politics of this state. We know the realistic view of politics of our county and what we're up against. But what I found, again, that surprised me a little bit was leaving hopeful and leaving a little bit more inspired than just, thinking, gosh, there's no way to do this. Really, I thought there's nowhere to go but up for us as a party. There really isn't. I think that we're extreme low point right now, but we can recruit candidates and we can give people choice. And that's what they need. I would really love to see less uncontested elections. I think that both of our elections proved that people want a choice. Yes, we were not successful in getting the seats we ran for, but I think getting 42% of the vote in my particular district, that was a win, an absolute win. And, we can keep building on that. I was really inspired by Heather Bauer when she came and she said, what she hates to see candidates that run one time and then they give up, because you're making headway. You are closing gaps and people need to stick with it. It's hard, I know, because you're sacrificing a lot as a candidate. I sacrifice time with my family. I have 2 young sons at home and my husband works full time. So, when we were like 2 ships passing in the night, he would come home and I would leave. And there were months of sacrifice. And so it's hard to talk somebody into doing that, but there is progress that is being made. And again, it's not going to be made overnight. And every single person, every leader, every elected official, everybody that we talked to during these 4 sessions had the exact same sentiment. Politics change. These are cycles. So progress is being made and we cannot let our foot off the gas.
In any campaign, there is a certain amount of rah, rah, rah. We are going to win. We know we're going to win. And a certain amount of practicality that I guess is more in the background. Do you have to jettison the practicality and just focus on the possibility? Or is the practicality kind of in the background all the time?
I can say it's a mixture of both at the same time. I'm going to get happy, but not too excited because I need to be practical at the same time. And I looked at my race, for example, it was a special election. It could have really gone either way, just depending on how we can turn out votes. But we have this notion in the state of South Carolina, especially with Democrats, and someone even said this to my face. I was at the door. Oh, good luck. I'll vote, but we never win at races here. But you have to be practical, but also the importance of the race of giving someone a choice. Because for my race, this seat was never contested. It was always an uncontested race. So every county council person in District 6 just ran and was able to get on county council, and look where that's getting us today. And so there's the messaging that we need to talk to the voters, and really the verbiage or the linguistics of it all, as well as like, we're not really the extreme candidates that people paint us out to be. And especially for a county council race, and just any race currently in this election cycle or this current season, is the message is people are trying to take away rights. I don't care if it's a right to read a book, your right to have privacy, your right, and you can go down the list, and who's more extreme. And I think, again, like Carla was saying, that the cycles are slowly changing. The state is a slow progress moving forward, but we just can't. I don't want people to give up hope on moving forward as a state, and just, you may not look like how we envision it.
So my idea of practicality, kind of a downer, and we can't focus on that.
No. And, I found it helpful to kind of redefine winning during my campaign. I mean, ultimately, our ultimate goal was getting the seat. We never took our eyes off of that. We understood we had an uphill battle. So what we did was kind of think about little small wins, right? So recruiting volunteers, finding so many more like-minded people and neighbors around me than I ever thought were there. People who I've met still to this day, and they'll say, "Thank you so much for running. I really liked this message," or "I really liked this part of your campaign." So, redefining wins to almost make them smaller and just say, okay, a win right now, like the very baseline win is that my opponent, who's an extreme right winger, did not just waltz into the seat unopposed. We gave people a choice. He did not just get it. He had to do some things. He had to fundraise, and he didn't just walk in. So that was the first win, just being on the ballot. And then another win is getting our volunteer base up to, 10, and then 15, and then 20, and then 50, then 100. We had financial wins, small goals that we would set for ourselves. So raising the first 5,000, the 10,000 mark, the 15,000 mark. I mean, there were so many small wins that were accomplished during the whole entire campaign without losing focus on the big picture, but just kind of keeping the steam in our sails, so to speak, when we felt like, okay, is this going to happen or is this not going to happen? So it's that mix of practicality and hope, because you don't know when it's your time. You really don't know if you're getting the message out to the number of people that you need to get it out to, and if they're going to respond the way that you want them to respond. So you just keep working as hard as you possibly can for the whole entire cycle. And, even up until election night, I still had hope. I mean, yes, even when you're a long shot, the hope may not be something that's a given, but man, the victory will be so much sweeter when you are the underdog and you just have these little wins. And then if you can finally get that big one, that's amazing.
I live in Matt Villardabo's district for State House. And this was, again, my first look at a in-depth inside look at a campaign in South Carolina. If I try to step back a little bit and think outside the bubble of politics that I was living in right there, and what I saw of media from Matt Villardabo, it was an occasional note on Facebook. And that was about it. What did you guys see in terms of being able to get a message to the public, and to how much of the public and how much of the voting public were you able to do? It seems like it was really frustrating that getting the message out is almost impossible on a really big scale.
Yeah, and again, it goes back to probably three things. Well, two. One would be what's your universe of voter, which again, that goes back to data. And that's a huge money operation that, the parties have the ability to have the voter file, which we in turn, candidates will pay for as well. So people want to know what your money goes to. Some of that would be spending $300 or $400 just on getting access to the state Democratic voter file, so we can see who would be a Democrat or lean Democrat, because in South Carolina, we don't register by parties. And then also at the end of the day, as archaic as this is going to sound, mail will still get to the voter. And that, again, costs money. I had a quote from a vendor for 2 mail pieces, and it was over $10,000. And that was hitting about 5,000 or 6,000 households. And that was for a county council district. Carla can speak on her mail budget too, but it costs money, and you need that data portion as well. One thing I thought was interesting, the National Democratic Party really didn't have a national organization like the Republicans have of getting out the vote and having that culture of voting until probably mid-2000s. And so we're going up against a behemoth of the GOP, and the data that we have access to, the national party will have to go state by state to buy access to the voter file. And I'll just tell you, just so everyone knows, we don't see who you vote for. We just see, for me, Ryan Stevens voted in the last Democratic primary, and then he voted in the Republican primary, and then a Democratic primary. And so that's what we see, and that's how we learn is like, okay, so voter Ryan could probably be a lean Democrat because we see he's voted in 2 Republicans and 3 or 4 Democratic primaries. So that's how we access our data, and a lot of that goes back to the national party. The National Democratic Party will buy the data, give it to the state parties as well, and that's kind of the infrastructure that people don't realize and say, "Oh, we just need to get rid of the party system." But yes, it will cost $1 billion to get all this information, and so it's learning the intricacies of that, but getting the message out. Again, you have to have a good message. You have to have money, and you have to buy the data to reach out to the voter.
What do they teach you guys on messaging? I'm going to guess it is make it simpler.
Yeah, an effective message that somebody can repeat to somebody else standing in the grocery line, saying, "Oh, Ryan Stevens, why are you going to vote for him? Let me tell you why." And it's what did Jay do? It's the 27-9. It's just a quick 15-second blurb about what you stand for. There's the power of 3. Maybe you have 3 different points, but there are all different ways to effectively kind of create and craft a message. But it needs to be simple, and it needs to resonate. And with messaging, Gary, like social media is, for the most part, you can boost ads, you can pay for ads, but for the most part, that reaches a lot of people, especially younger voters that tend to lean more in our favor. So that was a quick and easy way to get a message out. I don't know how effective it was. I'd like to think it was effective, but our market's particularly interesting because TV, now most people use streaming, but even if you were just talking about TV, we're in a Charlotte market. So I was seeing Jeff Jackson, ads. I'm not seeing local South Carolina ads. We're getting Charlotte information. But every single campaign to have an effective message, you need time and you need money. And the only way that campaigns get time and money is from supporters and volunteers. So I just implore every single person, if you're watching this podcast, obviously, you're a faithful Democratic voter, and support your local candidates. Please, 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 please. On a national level, every candidate needs support, but I see it, and how they were teaching us at the Clyburn Fellowship for the most part is we can make some movement on smaller local races that really are important to you and your neighbor. And like I said, people don't know what council does. People don't know honestly, they don't know what state representatives do. I don't think, I mean, I hate to say, but I think the majority of the doors that I knocked could not tell me who their current state representative was. And these are the people and these are the positions that are powerful enough to change your day to day. People don't know that, but it's true. So if you're watching this podcast, if you're a supporter of the Democratic Party in South Carolina, please get out there. Every campaign to get their message out effectively needs more time. They need more money. And that only comes from supporters.
Every time I look at a website for anything politically related, the first thing you see is the donation button.
Yep.
Give us money. I know. And it's a little obnoxious, honestly. Yep. I mean, to just get hit up from seemingly every single corner for money, it's a little bit much. And in my campaign, at first I was a little reluctant to ask for money because it felt selfish. I felt like, I don't know how to ask people to give me their hard-earned dollars, but it's not giving it to me. It's giving it to the ultimate agenda of, do you want to see rights taken away from you and your neighbors, or do you want to retain the rights that we've worked so for and actually start tackling the problems that are facing us now? When's the last time we heard about climate issues? It's because we're going backwards and talking about abortion, something that should have been settled 50 years ago. Right. We're not tackling today's problems when we're dealing and rehashing yesterday's issues that should be well settled. And that's where your money is going. It's not going to an individual. It's going to an idea. It's going to protect, what we have all fought for and what we all have come to enjoy and take for granted. And what we all think is just commonplace, which it's scary, but it's not. Things can change, and we need to make sure that we're looking forward.
Do you remember when you were on the other side of the funding pitch, when you were just a voter, and receiving all of these funding pitches and saying, I'm not going to send you money.
I mean, right? We agree. Like I'd say I'd respond stop to most of the automatic texts that I got. If somebody called me, I'd kind of think like, how are they going to call me in the middle of the day when I'm doing X, Y, or Z?
Mm-hmm.
But now I have obviously a different viewpoint and vantage and perspective from it. And I just hope that I can share that with people and understand that nobody wants to be making these calls.
Nope.
And nobody wants to ask for your money. And if we didn't need it, we wouldn't. But unfortunately, our opponents are so well funded that they're going to beat us in the fundraising race almost every single time.
If you were to go out on the street in Rock Hill and do a man on the street interview, and your question was, should we put more money into politics or should we get the money out of politics? It's all going to be get the money out of politics. And that is not a realistic thing.
No, well, I the whole money thing is, it was interesting for me because I had to fundraise was right after Thanksgiving. So right during that Christmas holiday. And so getting money out of politics would be great. I look at states, Connecticut, Maine, they have all these great states. I think Minnesota, with their 1-seat Democratic majority, just passed a publicly funded campaign finance laws. And so it would be great to have a campaign finance law where the state will pay for the majority of it, of the campaign finance. But here in South Carolina, it probably won't happen.
It's like you were saying, Carla, people don't know the details of the politics here.
Yeah. And that's okay. I mean, that I kind of think that in a way is a good thing because things have been going on. And, I remember, and this is something I just talked to my husband about. I remember when the biggest problem was plastic straws. Do you remember the plastic straw issue that we had? And
Yep.
People were beating up on restaurants for using plastic straws and metal straw. People were bringing their metal straws everywhere. And I keep thinking man, I wish we could go back to the time that plastic straws were the biggest kind of issue going on. But I think that's why people got a little maybe complacent. Rights were not being taken away from them. And so they kind of sat back a little bit and thought, okay, listen, politics is politics, but it doesn't really affect me. And I think that's the most frustrating message that I kept getting when I was going door to door during the campaign, where I felt like people were apathetic in a way and not really understanding how local politics really did affect them and their household.
Mm-hmm.
The decisions they can make for their children, for their family, for their medical care, for their futures, for their retirement, for all of these things. And now people are starting to kind of get jolted awake and thinking, okay, wait a minute. What's going on? Who's in charge of making these decisions? I mean, we're seeing it in education for sure, statewide and nationwide in a certain extent. But I think people are understanding a little bit more about the importance of school board issues and school board appointments, school board elections, local elections, state elections. So again, it's cyclical. I think it's going to take a second to kind of catch on, but I think we are seeing people kind of getting it. And I was guilty of it too. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I wasn't. If you asked me 4 years ago, who's your state rep? I don't know if I could have told you, honestly, Gary, I really don't. But the more concerned I became about potentially not having the rights that I have come to enjoy, or living in a type of way, that I have lived for as long as I have, or raising my sons the way that I want to, and them enjoying the rights that I've enjoyed, that kind of sparked in me this action and this desire to get more involved and become more educated.
I know my state representative is Ray Felder.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason I know that is because I paid very careful attention to Matt Villardobo's campaign.
Right.
That's the only reason.
What's funny is Ray used to have the House District 66 because we split basically after the 2020 census. So I would go to people and sometimes they would know Ray's name and they would say, oh yeah, I really like him. I think I'm just going to vote for him again. Well, Ray Felder's and so I would give them credit that they would either pretend to know or know the name, but they didn't know the person, and just explaining to people that we were redistricted was kind of an uphill battle as well, because I don't think that was really communicated in a way. And I don't know who job it was to communicate. I'm not placing on anything, but just going and saying, okay, first of all, we're in a new district. It's like, wait a minute, what's a district? I know my state, I know my county, I know my town. Tell me more. Or this is information overload and I don't want to hear it. So it's kind of, again, back to that effective messaging on a budget under a time crunch. Like, those are the three issues that kind of hit every single campaign, and what we try to learn more about each one of those three prongs at the Clyburn Fellowship. Each one of the 4 sessions, we were either working on the messaging part, the budget part, the timing part. I really think that, and Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I really think that almost every single session went to one of those 3 things.
Yep.
Did either of you guys feel like you were adequately funded, like you had the money you needed to spend in your campaign, or not even close?
Nope.
Yeah, but I also think that's going to be, I don't know if you could ask anyone if their campaign was adequately funded, honestly. It's hard to say there's like the bottom does not exist or the top does not exist, but you could always use more money, because what do you do with that money? Get your message out further, wider, repetitively. And so I think if anybody said, oh yeah, I had enough money in my campaign, I don't know if they would be necessarily telling the truth.
So looking at the next campaign, what have you learned that you want to pass on in terms of making a message and getting it out?
Keep it simple.
And by the way, there are no Republicans watching this program. If you are a Republican watching this program, you are now required to turn off your internet. Or we're going to have Emporium.
They know. I mean, that's the thing. That's everyone wants to keep everything so secretive. We don't want the Republicans to know. They're out here doing the same stuff we're doing, essentially. But no, just raise your money as early as you can. Just ask 50 to 100 people that you know in your network and ask them for $50 to $100, and just keep asking people, and don't be ashamed of it. Figure out your message as well. So I would say first figure out your message, then raise money, and always raise money, and keep your message as simple as you can, and don't overcomplicate things, because the average voter is not as nerdy as Carla and I to spend a weekend in Columbia to know the intricacies of running campaigns. The Jay, the executive director, he said they had people calling up until asking when's election day this past midterm, and so people are in their silos, and it's just how you can get into those silos to remember to bring them out to vote is what's important.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, once you hammer down your message, be bold, be authentic, and make no assumptions, and I think that's that last part that Ryan's saying. Don't assume that your brother, sister, mother, that they're going to go vote. You ask them and you tell them you need their vote and why. And that boldness also, comes from experience, I think. But Ryan said, don't be apologetic. There was a little bit of that. I wish that I had been less apologetic and a little bit bolder in my campaign, because I was running for a reason. I had every right to run. I was qualified to run, and people deserve to have a choice. And, I didn't need to start with, I'm a Democrat, but no, absolutely not. You have your message. You have to be tenacious, you have to be bold, and you make no assumptions.
In your county, do you put Democrat on your sign and your cards and stuff?
My yard signs, I didn't have it on my yard signs.
The funny thing is, I did not, and you didn't need to with my opponent, because he said conservative. And once the Republican messaging is like, you can slap conservative, family values, or any other bullshit thing. What party they are. And so I didn't need to. And I had people ask me what party, I said, I'm a Democrat, and I believe that you can have a choice in ensuring that. But, again, like what Carla said, it's just, if you're running on a party ticket, we can't be ashamed of who we decide to be on, especially in this climate, with everything going on, and just keeping that message going forward.
And I didn't have that on, not because I was ashamed, but because, unfortunately, I didn't want to turn people off right away just at a label. I wanted people to try to recognize my name with my message before they said, oh, she's a we're done. And that's what we get here. That's what you get to an extent everywhere. But I just felt so proud of my message that I wanted to lead with that, not my political party.
Yeah, it's not a matter of shame. It's strategic.
Right. Yeah.
So in speaking of messages, one of the things that I don't know distresses me a little bit about politics in general, but something I'm very aware of in a campaign, is that the message that always gets hammered is going to be the message du jour. It's the hot button of the day, and will have very little to do with the next 2 years of your work in whatever body that you're running for. And if you're successful in getting in, that message of your campaign is going to be long forgotten. And now you've got all the work of that legislative body to deal with. But at the campaign, it's all that 1, 2, or 3 things that you got to keep pounding. Are you guys as distressed as I am about that? Or just, once again, that's the way it's done?
I mean, I agree with you. I guess I've just come to accept that that's just the reality. You know, if somebody would ever, and not would ever, this happened, if somebody wants to sit down and have an hour-long conversation with me, that's fantastic. And I'd love to talk to them about why, these headline grabbing, attention-seeking, quick little segments don't actually matter when you're in the role that you're in, but they do grab attention and they do get headlines. So it's frustrating, but I think I've just come to accept it as the reality of any campaign. And I don't think that's changed. We did a lot of studying of campaigns from the past of South Carolina, of pretty much all over. And that's the one thing that struck me was that, you think that we're in kind of desperate times here as a party, but this has happened before. This vitriol, this polarization, this has happened before in this country, in this state. And you just have to ride through it.
Came from the state with Lee Atwater and watching that documentary with the Reagan campaign and then the Bush campaign, so going back to those presidential elections, like Carla was saying, like the vitriol was there, like Lee Atwater, his first congressional Republican that he ran was against this Democrat here in South Carolina, and he was a Jewish man, and they found a third party person to say he was proudly Christian. And so the whole, the Democratic candidate, the whole thing, people are like, we can't vote for you because you're Jewish. And all that started here in South Carolina with Lee Atwater. And so the vitriol and the attention seeking are always there. It's just how you can get through that noise, as I say, and get to the heart of the issue of what do people really care about at their kitchen table. And that documentary I recommend to everyone. I forget the name of it. It was some Lee Atwater documentary. We can figure it out and put a note in later. But politics, I say, is always the long game. And Jim Clyburn said it's best. It's like sometimes you have to give your opponent the football and let them think they have better field advantage when you're just recalibrating and refocusing on things. And then, getting that winning touchdown in the end. There's always going to be some type of distraction at the issue, whether we have the media playing a role into it as well. But all local elections, unfortunately, are now super national, and it's hard to get through that. And that's, I think, what got in, some of Carla's messaging as well. Is like, I had people asking me what my view was on abortion. I said, county council, we have nothing to do with abortion. Like, I don't care. Like, this has nothing to do with this race. Like, what is the real issue? Is like, let's get this road paved. And so, getting through to the agreeing with Republicans and Democrats on that is imperative.
Yeah. Or what stays in the children's section of the library.
Yeah.
Which is not a county council issue, but I guess that's the forum.
It's a headline grabber.
Yeah.
And now people who have never heard of that particular councilman have heard his name, so it's
I find it interesting. He's from Vermont.
This is the documentary you're talking about, Boogeyman?
Boogeyman, yes, the Lee Atwater story.
All right.
Yep.
All right, Carla, thank you very much for being here. Ryan, thank you very much. I think we've learned what we needed to learn. And we will see everybody next time we do one of these podcasts.
And Gary, can I just say, maybe we can link the applications probably aren't live yet, but maybe we can link where you can find an application to become a Clyburn Fellow, or the deadline or anything like that. you can also reach out to me if you want to have, if you want any more information about what it actually looked like, the time commitment, all of that stuff. But if people are interested, it's just an exciting opportunity to get people more involved in the party. And that's what we need. We need more people that are dedicated, that want to be involved in the party, and that can get this kind of training under their belt. So I really suggest that anybody that's interested in learning more about it, reach out to me or Ryan, and definitely, apply and give it a try.
Yeah, it's real easy to find. Just Google Jim Clyburn Fellowship. And pop right up in the Google. All right. Thank you, guys. Appreciate your coming by the York County Democratic Party YCDP TV podcast. Maybe we need a better name.
Thanks, guys.
And we'll see everybody next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.